$300 million, the total there is $700 million. What's our share of it? How do we propose to fund that? Why do we hide that from the public in the financial statement? Where is it in the financial statement, the debt of the CRD? And that's just a cursory look at the report to meet this 5-minute limit that I have. As you said, you came into office on a promise of restraint and fiscal responsibility. And with that in mind, I propose that you defer approval of the 2014 report until we see some substantive objectives for 2015 included in the report, and give an explanation of cost overruns and specifics as to why there was a need for a 5% increase in taxes. Also, in closing, with reference to the provincial changes to local government, I should like to see a motion in council for the city to withdraw completely from the CRD. That adds at least 10% to our taxes. We can no longer support this costly and wasteful extra level of government. Those councillors who wear two hats would be required to abstain from the vote. Let's see a tax reduction in 2015 and a reduction in the oppressive debt by proper management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. John, before you begin, I just want to address some of the questions that came from Mr. Rose. There's so many of them, I don't actually know where to begin. We're going to have an opportunity to discuss this later on the agenda, and I hope my fellow councillors have written some of these issues down so we can bring these up. But short of being able to satisfy this in any way, I think we need a person like yourself sitting on our Finance, Audit, and Personnel Committee that can raise some of these issues that we can address. And I'd like to invite you to sit on it. So let's move forward with the next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Council. My name is John Schmuck. I live at 1180 Rock Street. I'm here wearing two hats tonight. First, I'll be addressing item number E6 as President of the Quadra Cedar Hill Community Association. The rezoning of 3974 Cedar Hill Crossroad from RS6 to, I think, R24, anyhow, into 4 townhouses. Our Quadra Cedar Hill Community Association did a consultation on this, which we played almost 2 years ago, and this one caught me a bit by surprise. It was on the agenda tonight. But in brief, when we did the consultation, we had no community objections noted from the neighbors. We believe it conforms to the local area plan and the official community plan regarding density. It is close to the Quadra Mackenzie Village Center. It's close to the bus routes at Quadra Street and on Mackenzie Avenue. It's also close to the Lochside Trail, Reynolds School, Brayfoot Elementary. We recommend approval. My second hat here tonight, I'm a member of the Planning, Transportation, and Economic Development Committee, the PTED Advisory Committee, regarding items H1 and H2. Our committee voted unanimously to send these to Council for your consideration. The first one on affordable homes and property transfer tax. I think we all know this is a tax grab by the province. We've done that for years. It's $1 billion of revenue. It might be hard for the province to replace, but it's an unfair tax. There is some validity in using it to deter property flippers. The main problem is that it affects the affordability for people starting out in life. Item number H2, affordable housing for seniors. Presently, we have deferral for municipal property taxes. Last week you discussed possibly expanding that for utilities. That might be good for the seniors in need. And also the concept that Councillor Haynes puts in his report, approved by our PTEC committee, to expand this for maintenance. If you have to put a new roof on, it can be very costly for a senior. And we want seniors to be able to age in place in their home. And this is a sideline. I had coffee with the chair of the Greater Victoria Housing Society this afternoon. He was quite enthusiastic about these proposals. But I want to thank you for considering these recommendations from your PTED Advisory Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, any members of the public who wish to speak, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Jason Ross. I actually reside in North Victoria, but I'm here to speak about the annual report. I'm doing a bit of an analysis of annual reporting in the region, and I wanted to make some comments on Sanchez, which of course is up for discussion tonight. First, I wanted to compliment you on a well structurable, fairly easy to read report. And specifically, I want to highlight the use of the strategic plan as structure for upcoming objectives is excellent. Bringing the two documents in sync and making a cohesive whole between two of the really three most primary documents that get published on an annual basis. The report details themselves are thorough, yet they're concise, so there's a lot of information there, but it's not so wordy as to get lost. However, it's not glossy and shallow. Also, it's an attractive looking report, so it makes it for easier readability. And finally, it's miles ahead of the confusing mess that is Victoria's City annual report for this year. So that said, I'd like to make a few objects of constructive criticism. Specifically, for many of the performance measures that are included in the progress reports, it's not clear exactly which objectives are related to which performance measures, or which of the objectives that are still in progress from the previous year are still within original time and budget estimates, and which ones are over and under. There's also a lack of performance measurement results data for some of the operations and services identified from the previous annual report. For example, I'd like to ask why the progress on long-range OCP indicators last reported in the 2012 annual report, according to this version, says it's only scheduled to be updated in 2017. And why is that on a 5-year basis as opposed to annually? When some of the objectives are being tied to those factors that are in the report, if they're not being updated annually, we can't, as a public, really discern whether the information is, what the current state, the active, up-to-date state of the situation of any particular operation is. Okay, so moving on. The key goal of reporting in the previous year's operations and service levels is to provide a form of transparency and public accountability of municipal operations. So if this data, another point is that if this data is not being reported annually, you may not be complying with section 98(2)D of the community charter, which reads, progress report, you must include a progress report respecting the previous year in relation to the objectives and measures established for that year. If the information can be made available, it would also be helpful for transparency, comprehensibility, and analysis to include a list of all objectives and their associated actions and performance measures that are created to determine the success of those actions in meeting the objectives. In a separate Excel or CSV file, some machine-readable format, in addition to the annual report document itself. And there are examples in other regions of the standardization and publication of municipal performance metrics. With an excellent example of this happening in the province of Ontario, where the province requires all municipalities to publish a standardized set of performance metrics in a machine-readable format. So the province defines what these performance metrics are for each area of municipal business, and each municipality has to report those specific metrics. Again, you allow that comparison. You get standardization allowing to compare one municipality against another, as well as seeing the same metrics again and again and again. Because many of the things that municipalities deal with on a yearly basis are repeat things. Right? There are occasionally one-time costs, but there are definitely repeat issues that if you have statistical information that is, and performance measure information that's standardized, it's much easier to compare on a year-to-year basis how well things are operating. And finally, if the performance metrics are standardized, such as in the Ontario system, it would also allow for easy monitoring, as I said, of year-to-year performance and cross-municipal comparisons, as the information can be easily collated for machine-based analysis, and that's a key part. Having the information in a printable, human-readable format is nice for us, but in order to really take it to the next level and to be able to process that information in a way that can really go in-depth, either within one municipality or across municipalities, you need that information to be in a machine-readable format. Because otherwise it means somebody has to go and parse through your document, hand pull out the information into that machine-readable format, and then do their work, which, again, if you're providing the information, you get that maximal benefit of everybody can share that one person's effort, as opposed to having to be done again and again and again for anybody who wants to approach the information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
So going back to the machine-readable format.
Yes.
Are you suggesting it's a requirement or it's a nice to have?
I personally would like to see this as a requirement. Ideally, this would be something that had to go to the provincial level, but there's no reason that municipalities can't voluntarily implement performance measures in a standardized format. And like I said, looking to outside districts for ideas and specific performance metrics. The province of Ontario, like I said, they publish an entire series of they provide 2 different formats for list and table format for this, but they've defined performance metrics. And they also have documentation on how to fill this out, basically. There are also, the province of BC itself has a report that was created back in 2003, back when the community charter was first created, on instructing municipalities on how to fulfill their annual reporting requirements. And a big section of that is dedicated to the identification of objectives, the determination of performance metrics, and giving some good examples on what those are. And they've obviously gone out to other regions, and they do have a good appendix on there that lists where their sources are being cited as well. So, and if you can't find that online, you need to get a link to that document, you can ask me, and I can get it to you. My Twitter account is Jason Ross.
Okay, while you're at the microphone, so we'll take that to our committees, and our staff have made note of that. The other comment that you made was that we will perhaps not comply with section, I think you said it was 1982D of the community charter. That section is Division 5, reporting annual municipal report, and it says a progress report respecting the previous year in relation to the objectives and measures established for that year under paragraph F. The annual report must include the following. Are you saying to us that we're not following that?
Well, if you take this year's annual report as an example, the first section that I was commenting is, it's lovely that it's organized by the strategic plan. And inside of that, you have a number of objectives to achieve for this year. And in those objectives, you can see on the side column, there's the list of the specific performance metrics that are supposed to be determining the success of those objectives. And you will find very much the same thing in the previous year's annual report of listing those performance measures. However, some of those performance measures are not included in the annual report. So, and specifically the one that I mentioned, the OCP, what was it called? The long-range OCP indicators. There's a number of them that, like for instance, like the example, one that's coming on top of my head is the number of hectares of ALR land, right? And that one in particular should be fairly easy to calculate. But it's only, according to the report, the number that's in there currently for this year is 2012 for the last reported data, and it does say that it won't be updated until 2017.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a comment from staff about this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council's adopted strategic plan, 2014 to 2018, sets out annual, mid-range, and long-range measures and indicates when those will be reported. So the annual report is in fact reporting on the annual indicators as required, and would report on the mid-range in the year that those are indicated, and on the long range in the year that those are indicated. So in fact, the annual report does meet the requirements of the community charter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And that's true to a certain point, and certainly you're far more in compliant with the, I think to the letter of the law you probably are. I'm seeking more to the perspective of the spirit of the law, but like I said, that document that the province created in 2003 very clearly explains what needs to be created, and there are a lot of municipalities that aren't, and like I said, you're in a far better shape than the City of Victoria. The City of Victoria is not, they don't even try performance metrics in a number of fields. But anyway, that's...
All right, thank you for answering my questions, and we'll take this back.
Okay, thank you.
And personally, thank you for bringing this up. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Casey Edge. I'm the Executive Director of the Victoria Residential Builders Association, number 1, 3690 Cary Road. I'd like to speak tonight in support of Councillor Fred Haynes' resolutions, H1 and H2, on housing affordability. The GST and property transfer tax have contributed significantly to the erosion of housing affordability in our region. In 2000, the GST for an average new home was $10,000 and the PTT was $3,000. Due to inflation today, it's $30,000 and $10,000. Triple increases. Most incomes have not tripled since 2000, so it's no wonder younger generations are challenged by the cost of housing. In 1991, the federal government promised to index the GST rebate to inflation. At that time, more than 90% of new home buyers in Greater Victoria qualified for the full rebate. Today, less than 10% qualify. Most home buyers don't realize the BC's property transfer tax is embedded in the cost of homes before they are built. When a developer buys land from a landowner, PTT is paid. When the land is subdivided into lots and sold to builders, PTT is paid again. When the home is completed and sold, PTT is paid a third time. The property transfer tax should be removed on upstream development, so if a tax must be paid, it's transparent to consumers and charging them once. I'd like to add an additional wrinkle to the property transfer tax. When one of our builders poured a foundation before land transfer paperwork was completed, the property transfer tax auditors demanded tax on the lot and foundation to complete the land transfer. When the house was completed and sold, included in the property transfer tax was a tax for 2 foundations. Multiple property transfer tax charges remain because, quoting a former BC Minister of Finance, we make a lot of money from it. The BC government continues to use that argument today. However, multiple charges on the construction of a single home are neither transparent nor fair, and making a lot of money from it is not an excuse. On the issue of seniors housing, CMHC released its annual seniors report. They report the vacancy rate for independent living suites in British Columbia is declining. Our population of seniors aged 75 and older is growing, along with the need for independent living suites. This exceeds the growth in supply of new units. The average monthly rent for independent living suites in BC is rising and now stands at $2,800. The recommendations of the BC Seniors Advocate will help seniors adapt their homes and remain in their communities longer. A recent study by the CRD indicates many seniors enjoy home ownership, yet don't have the resources to continue living in their own homes. On the other hand, young working people don't have the down payments and incomes to afford to buy a home, partly due to unfair taxation. We have solutions to these challenges, but it takes political will, starting at the local level. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Eric Daly. I live at 2923 Mount Baker View Road. And as with Mr. Schmuck, I'm going to wear 2 hats. I'm first going to address F1. And, you know, when I first saw the article in the Saanich News, I said, where have you been all my life? It's amazing. I shared the presentation. I hunted down the presentation and I shared it with our executive. We posted it on our website. The response has been amazing. And to quote Councillor Plant, let's let the professionals look at it. That's all I would, and thank you on behalf of the residents of Kedver Bay, Temlau Point, and Queenswood. And now I'll quickly put on my other hat as the past chair of the Greater Victoria Housing Society. And thank you very much, Councillor Fred. We're quite excited about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward.
Thank you. I wish to speak regarding the Watkis Way Waste Management Site proposal. My name's David Langley. I live at 4040 Harrow Road. I've been a Saanich resident for 40 years. I've been actively involved in the CRD sewage treatment planning process over the last 8-9 years it's been going on. There's been a lot of recent attention in both the west side and east side public engagement programs on identifying distributed systems for sewage treatment with several small treatment sites. It's now very important, I believe, that the potential distributed systems are carefully assessed against a centralized system in order to determine which is the most beneficial, efficient and cost-effective scheme for the whole region. The Watkis Way proposal is by far the best documented example to date of a centralized treatment alternative to the stalled McLaughlin-Heartland combination. However, the current list of potential West Side Committee sites who've been looking for several months over on that side excludes this proposal because the site lies in Saanich. It's not in their bailiwick. The East Side Committee site, including Saanich, list excludes this proposal because it appears Saanich have never considered candidate sites that far west. But now here it is. And I would like to speak strongly in support of inclusion of the Watkis Way site for inclusion in the combination of sites that will be outlined by the West Side and East Side committees. This is coming up at a public meeting just 2 days from now on the 24th. There is still time, I believe, for this new proposal to be included in the range of technologies and sites in what are called the preferred solution sets that will be confirmed by CRD, I believe on July 29th. That's to set everything up for the ongoing independent engineering and financial analyses. Now, when that, even as that gets started, documentation will be required for each possible site that comes into play, and there are dozens of them still in play. And this is what the information that's needed really for each site in order for analysis to proceed. How will sewage get to that site? How much sewage will be collected at that site? How will sewage be treated? Where will the treated effluent go? Will it go be recycled? Will it go to ground? Will it go to outfall? And then a big question, how will the sludge that comes from the sewage treatment process get to a biosolids disposal site? Will it be piped? Will it be trucked? The present earlier proposal is the 18-kilometre pipeline between McLaughlin and Hartland. Now, you've seen today that all those questions have been considered and addressed comprehensively in a good outline fashion at an overall regional level by this Watkins Way proposal. The public has no information at present whatsoever on any of those questions related to any of the other individual sites. That it's barely starting. I believe it's essential, but I'll put it, I believe it's of great value for the citizens of Saanich and for the region, for this council to take the actions now to ensure that this Watkins Way proposal goes forward, at least to the starting line. So I would hope actions can be taken this evening to make sure this site is flagged and put up to the public 2 days from now on the 24th, and then it's fully incorporated in the decisions the CRD will have to make before the final set of systems and alternatives go forward after July the 29th. Please take action tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff members. My name is Haji Charanya, and I reside at 757 Genevieve Road. I want to speak on Section H, Item 1, the property transfer tax. And I'm wearing only one hat, and that's my own hat. I'm mindful of the fact that this is a billion-dollar cash grab and this is a provincial issue. Nonetheless, you can add your voice. This provincial property purchase tax has been quite a concern of mine for a number of years. My eldest daughter moved 4 times, from 1 bedroom to 2 bedrooms in Langford to a house in Langford, and because of the crawl, thank God she's back to Saanich. That's the 4th time she has moved. She has paid taxes in amount of thousands of dollars of property transfer tax. So thank you, Mr. Councillors, Councillor Hens. Now, Councillor Hens has narrated an assortment of ideas, so I would like to bring forward a few ideas of my own. Number 1, exempt the provincial property tax, transfer tax, completely on the first principal resident of BC residents. So the BC residents would be paying no provincial property transfer tax. Number 2, should BC resident decides to upgrade the principal residence because of a move for a new job or growing family or looking after the ailing living parents or suitable school, etc., the provincial property transfer tax should be charged only to the price difference between the selling price and the new purchase price. My third idea is loss of any revenue can be made up by the province by charging perhaps the higher PTT to non-residents of BC, non-residents of BC or non-residents of Canada when they purchase the real estate. This will discourage foreign ownership and make housing more affordable for locals. It will also tax the investors, speculators, and the flippers, but will help the locals. I believe some countries do charge extra property taxes or a certain amount of taxes for the non-residents. And I think this whole issue of property purchase tax should be reviewed by the province. It may not be easy, but worth a try. It's a billion-dollar question. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. Calling for a second time. Any members of the public that wish to speak?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and staff. Catherine Whitworth, 4548 Human Avenue. Oops, sorry. Lost my little note here. I am very skeptical of the F1 item on the agenda this evening. If after further deliberation at the CRD, it is determined that this 30-acre parcel is where a new sewage treatment plant should be, what implications is there going to have on the due diligence with this application would normally have if it wasn't going to be a sewage treatment plant and no pressing deadline? That is, if we're not going to have a sewage treatment plant, would this landowner be applying to come out of the ALR in a normal state of affairs? Will this be fast-tracked and rubber-stamped, or will it actually have some meaningful dialogue? I am very concerned that taking out 30 acres of the ALR will negate all that Saanich has worked for in terms of the environment. I am also hard-pressed to understand why none of the other properties identified on the east side map have not taken up this opportunity to come forward. The economics of this situation are enormous. I only hope that Mayor Atwell and Councillor Haynes excuse themselves when this item comes forward later on in the evening. Both received significant contributions to their campaign last year from the property owner. That in itself is not necessarily a conflict of interest, but the fact that both were actually adamantly opposed to the previous proposal leaves one to feel that the bias does exist. I do not support this location for a sewage treatment plant. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak?
May I be a member of the public?
Can I ask the clerk for clarification?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Parks is the delegation. When council comes to discuss the issue, if they have a request for clarification from Mr. Parks, that would be the appropriate time for that.
I would like to clarify, so please ask.
That would be in the next portion of the agenda when council is
Okay.
actually dealing with F1.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, please, if we have one. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, staff. I'm Ken Johnson. I reside at 3904 Landis Place, and I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of the Hallmark Heritage Society and speaking regarding the proposed heritage designation of 3918 Cary Road. It was not too many years ago this particular house had sat on that little hill and was in a serious state of disrepair. It was a popular spot for vandalism, windows being broken, doors being kicked in, graffiti all over the place. And to be honest, there was the despair in the heritage community that it would be demolished to make way because it sat on a rather large piece of property. But due to the efforts and work from Saanich staff and planning, they came up with a solution that allowed the developer to increase the density on that site, and thus I can only presume gain some small remuneration, and save the heritage house. It is now 2 strata houses. The exterior looks very good. The interior has been completely brought up to modern standards, with kitchens, bathroom, plumbing, wiring. It's all very well done. And to the Saanich staff and council, I say, well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please come forward. Calling for a third time. Any members of the public wish to speak? All right, thank you to all of our speakers. That was very, very interesting. I will now move on to the next item, E, bylaws. First item, please, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. These next 4 items are a series of loan authorization bylaws. The first item before council is the first 3 readings of the Sewer Capital Program Loan Authorization Bylaw 9336. And this is in regard to improvements to the sewer service, sewer system in the sewer service area. This is for borrowing.
Second?
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously.
Second?
Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously.